following visual presentation is based not on fiction, but on fact. It is hard to believe that within a space of 150 years, a country's population grew in size by over 100% and then was halved in size yet again. The humble potato was responsible for a huge growth in the population of Ireland from 1750 to 1845, and then ironically was responsible in part for the massive decimation of its population. The Irish potato famine still stands this day as one of the worst disasters on the population of a Western European nation, and indeed worldwide. In the following presentation, I will try and explain why and how this happened. It is a complex web of many different facets and many different twists and turns that will not only grab your imagination, but shock and astound you as well. It is a story that needs to be told and retold, a story that should be a lesson to humanity and the human race, a story, an event that should never be forgotten. Ireland of the 1700s was primarily a farming community. The people lived off the land and basically survived by it or died by its hand. The land in parts of the country was hard to farm, especially in the west of the country. The land was stony and not very arable. Crops didn't grow very easily, and in general, people eked out a meager existence. Most of the farmers were tenant farmers, and they farmed very small plots of land. Their families were average-sized, and they did what they had to survive. They farmed the land, raised livestock, and sold their crops and animals to pay the rents to their landlords. Although it is said that Sir Walter Raleigh introduced the potato during the 1500s, it was not recognized by the Irish people for what it really was. A crop that would grow in the wild and damp climate of Ireland. A crop that would grow in the stony soil, and a crop that would feed and nourish a people as good as any other crop on the face of the earth. When the Irish people realized the potato was so easy to sow, harvest, and cultivate, their dependence and desire for it fanned the flames of the population boom. Within less than 100 years, the population doubled, and the demand for the humble potato became insatiable among the Irish population. Families grew in numbers, and because of the quantity of food now available among the general population, life expectancy improved, and the numbers living to old age increased. Birth rates increased off the charts, and the rate of infant mortality decreased due to their mothers being able to provide proper and regular nourishment. Not only that, but now the family's livestock was also fed on the scraps from the family meal, and therefore the price for healthier and heavier livestock increased, therefore improving the income available to the farmers. In short, the potato was a godsend to the Irish people, and they couldn't get enough of it. It is reckoned that pre-famine, the average Irish person was consuming up to 15 pounds or 55 individual potatoes a day. Unfortunately for the Irish people, this was a rich and bountiful harvest that wouldn't last forever, and it would shortly come to an end. When the blight hit Irish shores in 1845, the population was estimated to be anywhere between 8.5 and 9 million. The estimates vary so much because census figures were more of a guesswork than fact, mostly due to the high illiterate rates among the Irish peasant classes. As year followed year, for the next 5 years the blight worsened, and the famine grew worse and worse. People were now dying by the roadside after being evicted from their homes, dying in workhouses from disease, or taking to the infamous coffin ships that left Ireland for the far-flung corners of the earth in their droves. Hunger, disease, and immigration was in full flow, and the population was starting to dwindle in huge numbers. The result was the population nearly halving in size. As many died as immigrated, and the population would never recover. By the start of the 20th century, the population had fell below 4 million from its high of up to 9 million in 1845. The effects of untold suffering and death, mass immigration, and fear drove people from the land for generations after the famine. Up to this day, the population has never recovered to pre-famine numbers and probably never will. Any questions?
Why is the Irish famine so controversial?
The majority of the controversy is over the question of blame. There are, of course, two main fields of blame that are commonly used: the British landlords and the Irish themselves. The British government was accused of allowing the country to starve, while the Irish were blamed for allowing themselves to be so dependent on one crop and having too many children. However, the famine is too complicated to allow these to be the only two issues to blame. There was a number of social and political forces at work, plus, of course, the potato blight that consumed the land and robbed the people of their main food source.
Is it true that the Native Americans sent aid to Ireland?
Yes, it is true. The Chickasaw tribe from Oklahoma donated $170 to the people of Ireland to help alleviate the pain and suffering of the Irish people. The reason for this was that the Choctaw people themselves had suffered a similar fate only a few years earlier during the Trial of Tears. When the Chickasaw people heard of the Irish suffering and their plight in 1847, they collected money among their tribe and sent it to Ireland.
And what parts of Ireland suffered most during the famine?
The island as a whole suffered greatly during the famine. However, it is generally accepted that west of Ireland was probably the worst hit. Whole villages were emptied and some were never inhabited again. The main reason for this was the people of the western seaboard were the main dependents on the potato. There was little or no industry in the west, and so when the crops failed, so did the economic structure of the poor tenant farmer. Also, the land wasn't very arable, and many other crops wouldn't grow as it's stony, wet soil like the potato did.